Hi, I'm Terry Coleth. I'm here today with Ray Boyce of Rosemont. We're talking about the final Shakespeare selection in this semester of the Academy of Lifelong Learning. Thank you for joining me, Ray.
Nice to be here.
Well, before we talk about Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, let's talk a little bit about what you've done, because we've been talking about the amazing statistics, how many plays we've covered, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, if you can remember far back to 2015, we decided to introduce the Salute to Shakespeare in honor of the 450th anniversary of his birth and then the 400th anniversary of his death. We started in, and now it's interesting, I compiled them the other day. We've done 22 of the 37 plays. And we've done 6 other special classes on the sonnets and on introductions and discussion of the Elizabethan period and the people and things that were going on socially and religiously. So we've covered a lot of tracks.
Music also.
Yes, one of the specials was on Shakespeare's music, and my wife Jackie sang 9 Shakespeare songs, and Randy Woods accompanied her, and that was a lot of fun.
So when we were looking at this commemoration of the death and celebration of the birth, we were thinking, will people be interested in Shakespeare? Because we are. I mean, you're more interested than anyone, but so am I. And we thought, wow, the whole world is going to be looking at Shakespeare. And how wonderful for us that you let us look so intimately at Shakespeare. All these plays, and 20 of 27.
22 of 37.
22 of 37, so you have a few more to go.
37, depending upon what you count and don't count, but that's the generally accepted number, I believe, 37.
Okay, so that's a couple more semesters.
Well, if I get a raise, maybe I could see my way to doing that.
You generously do this, and we appreciate it. And I also love the way you've divided them up into genres, so that, first of all, we learn that there are comedies and tragedies and romances and histories. So we know that, we know examples of them, and it's wonderful. That just adds to the richness. Still, my favorite thing, well, my 2 favorite things are what's happening in the time of Shakespeare around the rest of the world, especially here. And we'll have a little lecture on that maybe on TV, if not a full lecture. Also, all of the things we say without even knowing that they're attributable to
all the words that he introduced or reintroduced or created. They're exaggerated numbers. I've seen one sort citing 25,000 words he introduced, which I think a more realistic number I've read is 2,500 that he probably introduced. But it was a time when the English language was going through a change, and from the medieval period came Chaucer, and after Chaucer it really jumps forward, and here's Shakespeare in the Elizabethan period with a lot of changes happening in language as well as around the world, all kinds of explorations and scientific endeavors. So it's a very exciting period.
And in that very exciting period, here's a man who thought in terms that would still be relevant to us all this time later.
Well, that's the amazing thing, is the plays are as fresh today as they were then. Sometimes I think maybe they're more applicable to our lives today than even back then, but it's really kind of an amazing thing that, and you can go back into the plays a second or third time, and you find things that he was predicting or anticipating in terms of his plots and language, etc. It's really kind of amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. And the way you're doing it now, where we see a film of an actual production, an actual play, and then the next day discuss it. That's been really, really interesting. It's not just the Hollywood version of what Shakespeare said.
No, I'm a champion of the stage versions of the play, and we're so gifted these days that we have a variety of sources which do the plays in full. For example, we've been using this year mostly, 2 out of 3 were from the Globe, the original Globe Theatre replica in London, or just outside of on the Bankside. And they're wonderful. They're just beautifully produced. They're true to Shakespeare and the times, and they are beautifully recorded and produced. There's no doubt about it.
So this semester has been comedy. Comedies have been the focus. This one kind of transcends comedy a little bit, or leaves it a little bit?
It does. It combines a lot of things, and the more I've gotten into this, I realize that's exactly true. It's regarded as a comedy, but it's somewhat anticipating the period to come. The next period produces plays like Hamlet, and the characters and the period of time in Twelfth Night really reflect a different period, a different attempt at dramatic, and there are many aspects of the play, especially some of the characters like Malvolio, that really have some tragic dimensions to them, almost, but they're not. Sort of a hint of what's to come.
Interesting. So, Twelfth Night, or also known as What You Will. Twelfth Night is the end of Epiphany.
Well, Twelfth Night is exactly 12 days after Christmas, and that brings you to January 6th, which is the feast in the Christian world, the Feast of the Epiphany. And in England, it was celebrated as a night of great revelry and activity and misbehavior. And there were various ceremonies that led to the creation of the Lord misrule, the Lord of the misrule, and a lot of things could go on that night that would be not exactly acceptable at other nights or periods of the year. So there's a lot of revelry and misbehavior and a real holiday, festive atmosphere that the Twelfth Night brought.
All right, and it's a semi-fictional land taking place around the year 1600.
Mm-hmm. And the land is Illyria, and the period of time is just about the turn of the century, and Elizabeth is still alive, and she dies 3 years later in 1603. So there are connections between the play and the period of time for sure, and it also produces several very, very memorable characters in addition to Olivia. Malvolio is a memorable one and always pursued by many, many actors. And the version we're using from the Globe, Stephen Fry plays Malvolio, and it's just a showstopper. There's no doubt about it. And if you know the play at all, it's how he appears. He's tricked into appearing with yellow stockings and cross ties, and he absolutely made into a complete buffoon. And actually, it goes in some people's minds, it goes a little bit too far. It's almost sadistic what they do, and that's where you kind of get this edge of possible dimension of tragedy that enters the play, and that character's role. Sir Toby Belch and Sir Andrew Aguecheek. And they're very, very, the audience will find them very intriguing, entertaining characters. And then you have the famous Feste, the Fool. This is one of Shakespeare's fools, and many people regard it as, along with the Fool in King Lear, his major character along those lines. The Fool was either a paid or employee who entertained at the court. And the Fool was able to say things and comment on things and get away with it. So, and sometimes if they went a little too far, they might not get away with it.
And that could be sad. Well, I hope you'll join us. You have two opportunities. First one on Wednesday evening in the Grand Cypress Room to watch the film version of the play. The second one is the very next morning when you can come back to the Grand Cypress Room and have some facilitated discussion and a lot more information about what you viewed the night before with Ray Boyce of Rosemont.